Cass can't travel on public transport anymore. Damn, that's crazy. Dr. Hilary Cass has criticized the spread of disinformation around her report, including from a Labour MP, as she revealed she has been told not to travel on public transport over safety fears. Nice meme. Being, calling the assertion completely wrong, Cass said that it was unforgivable for people to undermine her report by spreading straight disinformation. I would strongly recommend you guys watch the old Sean video on the bell curve, because I feel like the Cass report is similar to it in a lot of ways. The Cass report is loaded, as was the bell curve, with lots and lots of extremely moderate statements that downplayed the overall purpose of the book / report, that like would provide a bunch of arguments leaning in one direction, or would present like incredibly skewed information, and then would go, but you know, that doesn't mean we're making any recommendations, we're merely reviewing the literature, and da-da-da. Like, the whole point is to present a pseudo-scientific, extremely biased pretense for, you know, medical oppression, but in such a way that if examined directly, it's full of like caveats and fake nuance. So yeah, I don't care for this at all. Like that's the whole thing they want, you know? They want all of the recommendations to be like, to sound very moderate, but imply really bad stuff. And then people get mad at them, and then they dive into the actual content of the Cass report, and it's like, well, look at how measured they are this entire time. See if I can't find the recommendations list at the end. Where are they hiding? The Nation. Does this have the recommendations? Here, I don't see it here. Hold on. Why can't Cass just drive? Yeah, honestly, she's so lazy. Oh yeah, this was it. Key findings and overview of recommendations. And then a lot of these, like, don't even mean anything, you know? Children/young people referred to NHS Gender Services must receive a holistic assessment of their needs to inform an individualized care plan. This should include screening for neurodevelopmental conditions, including autism spectrum disorder and mental health assessment. Like, this sounds really innocuous if viewed in a vacuum, but if you're going to the NHS Gender Services, you're going to the NHS Gender Services. The implication here, and this is like a core part of transphobic reactionary rhetoric on trans youth, is the idea that you're not actually trans, you're just autistic or depressed or whatever else. You're going to make a gender clinician also screen for autism and do a bunch of like other psychiatric stuff, you know? Like, why, if you're going to the gender clinic, you're going to the gender clinic. Like, that's, you know, that is what you are there for. It sounds like innocuous because you'd think that's like a normal standard thing to do anyway, but that's the reason why these prescriptions are so vague, you know? They touch on and legitimize the reactionary fears of the right wing without making claims that are so ostentatious that they invite, like, you know, too much scrutiny. Oh yeah, this. Services should establish a separate pathway for pre-pubertal children and their families, ensuring they're prioritized about how parents can best support their child. When family carers are making decisions about social transition of prepubertal children, services should ensure they can be seen as early as possible by a clinical oh no, not that one. That one's fine. Where was the really egregious one? Oh yeah, right here. The option of providing masculinizing/feminizing hormones from 16 and on is available, but the review recommends extreme caution, which is not language justified by any evidence presented, like, whatsoever. You know, it's not, like, warranted by the content of the report. Where's the one with the family members that I remember? Oh, yeah. Support for parents, carers, and siblings is appropriate. Support the management of the associated distress from gender incongruence and co-occurring conditions, including support for parents, carers, and siblings is appropriate. Yeah. I mean, if you want, like, any better insight into the intent of the Cass report, then you, like, need only remember that as soon as it came out, every British politician was like, yes, we will restrict, like, medical access to transitioning for people who are 16 or whatever, you know? That one Labour MP who was like, I regret saying trans women are women. Yeah. The Cass report didn't even talk about that, but it was just like, you know, walking it back. The review has received criticism from some international medical organizations. Nice. Oh yeah, right. Not just a Labour MP, but the Shadow Secretary for Health. Insane. Absolutely insane. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said the findings shine a spotlight on the need for a cautious approach to child and adolescent gender care, saying the report must provide a watershed moment for the NHS's gender identity services, and committing the Labour Party to implementing the report's recommendations in full. Speaking to Sky News, Yvette Cooper said that Labour welcomed the Cass review and committed to implementing all of its recommendations. The Scottish government, being slightly better, said that it would take the time to consider the findings. I mean, Geekstar, international medical organizations attacked it pretty much immediately, you know? The World Professional Association for Transgender Health released an email statement that the report is rooted in the false premise that non-medical alternatives to care will result in less adolescent distress. The Professional Association for Transgender Health, Aotearoa, a New Zealand professional organization, stated the CAS review made harmful recommendations not in line with international consensus, that restricting access to social transition is restricting gender expression, a natural part of human... Oh, yeah, man, I forget how bad this was, where it started, like, cautioning people against social transitioning. The review strongly discourages social transitioning because it may have significant effects on the child or young person in terms of their psychological functioning and long-term outcomes. Oh, Julie Bindel. CAS review, a victory for women, children, and common sense. Dr. Cass's landmark review into gender care services in England brought us one step closer to throwing the harmful delusion that is gender ideology into the dustbin of history. Again, like, this is a hundreds of page long review that was commissioned and crafted for political purposes and has been extolled and celebrated by every, like, right-of-center transphobe there is, you know? The purpose of a system is its outcome. This isn't like an accident. The review, conducted by respected pediatrician Hilary Cass, found that some of the most vulnerable members of society, children presenting with gender dysphoria, in quotes, which in many cases masks autism, sexual abuse, trauma, and confusion over same-sex attraction, among other conditions, have been let down by a lack of research and remarkably weak evidence on medical intervention, you know, once you ignore all the evidence on the subject. In short, Cass has found that puberty blockers do indeed have side effects, obviously, and negative health implications. No, she didn't. We read that part of the literature analysis, that she didn't find that. Her inquiry concluded that there is at best weak evidence that these drugs are safe and beneficial to gender-questioning children. Remember when Cass then, just 2 days ago, or 3 days ago now, was conducted an interview with a queer organization and said that she thinks, if anything, puberty blockers need to be used younger, like earlier in life? Well, anyway, the anthology Monarchopasad. Wasn't Cass also following anti-trans and TERF groups? Yeah, on Twitter. There were a few, like, just explicit hate groups that she was following. So what straight disinformation is she talking about? Because, again, this is the whole purpose, right? And it's so characteristically British, too, you know? To, like, to be so vile and then to try to whip up a career. Not a career, I shouldn't say a career. To try to whip up sympathy out of whining about the blowback, you know? It's all J.K. Rowling does. It started the day before the report came out when an influencer put up a picture of a list of papers that were apparently rejected for not being randomized controlled trials. The list has nothing to do with either a report or any of the papers. Did you not say that a bunch of studies that you went over were low quality because they didn't we read that in the report? In the literature reviews, didn't you consistently say that a lack of certain methodological practices, including the randomized control trials, were lowering the quality of... Okay. Days after the CAS review was published, activists claimed on social media only 2 out of 100 studies were included in the report. Cass explained that researchers had appraised every single paper, but pulled the results from the ones that were high and medium quality, which was 60 out of 103. Butler, she added, you don't get up in Parliament with an intent to spread misinformation, but what I was dismayed about was the understanding that she got from the report. Cass's NHS review found that an entire field of medicine aimed at enabling children to change gender. Listen, dude, even here... Well, this is the time, so I'm not surprised. Listen to the language. An entire field of medicine aimed at enabling children to change gender. Like, the language here is so biased. Like, because that's the narrative they want to push. That it's like a group of doctors who are making a bunch of money, like grooming children, or like convincing autistic or depressive or anxious children that, like, actually being trans will solve their problems or whatever. She found there was no good evidence to support the global clinical practice of prescribing hormones to under 18s to pause puberty or transition to the opposite sex. Well, no, she didn't. She didn't. There is good evidence to support that. Like, the good is doing a lot of work here. And even she has walked back some of these claims, man. Oh my god. Her final report, the world's biggest review into the contested field of transgender healthcare. Cass said she was pleased that for the most part, both sides in the debate over the treatment of children with gender dysphoria had not weaponized her report. Literal, both. Are you joking? But she still had to deal with a pretty aggressive response from some, particularly those in activist groups. She's also staying away from Twitter. There are some pretty vile emails coming at the moment. Don't care. What dismays me is how childish the debate can become. If I don't agree with someone, I'm called transphobic. Or a TERF. I don't think she's a TERF, I just think she's transphobic. Cass revealed that 6 clinics had thwarted her review by refusing to cooperate with research into the long-term impact of prescribing puberty blockers and sex hormones. I'm really sorry, wait, am I remembering correctly? Didn't the reason the way in which these clinics didn't cooperate was that they didn't share a bunch of medical information with Cass? Is that not correct? Because I remember Cass in the literature reviews talking about how in some of these larger surveys that were done, the clinics didn't provide information on, like, you know, the details of the people who were being studied. I don't remember the exact context in which this, like, refusal took place. Secretive gender clinics back down over puberty blocker data? What is this? 6 NHS trusts had initially refused to divulge information on trans children for the Cass review of gender services, but will now do so. Oh, I can't read this one now. I'm not giving you money. The review team wanted to assess what risk factors in a patient's history could possibly be linked to detransition. A consultant who had carried out an audit of information from GIDS patients had agreed to give it to the Cass team. We asked the Tavistock to have it, and they wouldn't give it to us. It was very disappointing. Okay? Like, I mean, they didn't provide a bunch of medical records of their patients? Man, again, look, dude. Look at the way Cass talks. Look at how bad she is at maintaining the, like, specter of scientific neutrality. Following her report, Kemi Badenoch, the Equalities Minister, told the Sunday Times that there had been ideological capture of institutions, including the NHS, which needed to be corrected if Cass's recommendations were to be fully delivered. Cass responded yesterday by saying there could plainly be ideological capture about almost anything, and certainly about this. In regards to Tavistock, she told the Times that she had concluded, there were certainly 1 or 2 individuals who I would describe as activists among the staff. That's, man, I hate how I keep getting thrown into the culture war. By the way, you know, I agree with this political, you know, minister's statement on these institutions being captured by woke activists. Yeah, I'm just a neutral scientific arbiter going where the truth leads me. Hey, by the way, I've got, you know, I also believe that these, you know, institutions have been captured. She singled out Gender GP. Oh, isn't that the one with where there was a fuss with Finster? Also, can somebody please get me a list of the review's 32 recommendations? I tried quickly Googling for it and I couldn't find it. Oh, I love these recommended articles. Growing up, I wanted to be a boy. I'm glad puberty blockers were not an option. Are autism and gender dysphoria linked? This professor thinks so. Hillary Cass's biggest gift is to resurrect free speech. You know, with wonderful scientifically minded papers like the Times, you know, covering her so glowingly, it really contributes the impression that I get that this wasn't like a plant, you know? When I look up the recommendations, the ones that are listed in the final report, there are only like 8 of them. Literally this. The most, like, prescient Onion article of all time. The Independent has a summary, and the Independent is independent, so we can trust it. See, look at the articles they're linking here. Woman reveals what happens to her body after only consuming orange juice for 40 days. See, that's the, you know, scientific mind that we're here to sort of engage with. So, summary of what Dr. Cass has said. Gender care is an area of remarkably weak evidence, just factually not correct. But results of studies have been exaggerated or misrepresented by people on all sides of the debate to support their viewpoint. Stating that it is of remarkably weak evidence is exaggeration and misrepresentation. Dr. Cass said there is currently no good evidence in the long-term outcome of interventions to manage gender-related distress. Factual lie. Alongside a puberty blocker trial, which is expected could be in place by December, there should be research into psychosocial interventions and the use of the masculinizing and feminizing hormones, testosterone and estrogen. There is, but sure, always do more, I guess. Extreme caution. Care needs to be holistic and personal. Check for autism. Follow-through services 17 to 25. No clear evidence that social transition in childhood has any positive or negative mental health outcomes, and relatively weak evidence for effects in adolescence. Didn't we Google this and find this was a lie, like, really quickly? I guess she wouldn't have thought those studies were high quality, or whatever. Do they think that autists have, like, no stable sense of self-identity? Yes, they do. Yeah, that's a really common transphobic talking point, that autistic people are just kind of, like, shiftless, dumb, naive, and vulnerable. And that, like, it's really easy to groom them into thinking they're a different gender. The percentage of people treated with hormones who then detransition remain unknown because of the lack of long-term follow-up studies. Dude, didn't she literally say that in the assessment that she did, she found only a tiny percentage of the people studied detransitioned? We have so many studies over and over that indicate really, really low desistance rates, but the review stated there are suggestions numbers are increasing. Based on what? All right, whatever. I feel like we've gone over the cast review enough times, honestly. It's yeah, the point is taken. I don't know. Dumb shit. Also, no other medical intervention is subject to this much scrutiny. No, nothing is. There is no other medical intervention that you would do to an adult or to a minor that has anywhere near this amount of scrutiny being placed in it. The idea that this is being done like in a neutral, scientifically minded way and not in a political way is total bullshit. Like absolute bullshit. Insane. Absolutely insane. Abortion? No, not even abortion. Not even close. No. Abortion has a lot of restrictions on it. But in terms of like this pseudo-scientific, pseudo-medical, like we need 50 trillion studies, we need like 6 years of follow-through, we need to like introduce this many roadblocks. It's like the closest that I can think of is like the bills where like the you have to wait a certain amount of time and the abortion doctor is required to show you like a scan of the fetus inside you or whatever, which is really, really, really bad. I'm not downplaying that. I'm just saying that like it's usually the argument against abortion isn't the medical procedure itself, but rather the like taking a life thing, you know? But in this case, it's fussing and fussing and fussing over the like standard of care for the patient, which is a different like kind of fussing, you know? It doesn't like correspond to anything else that I can think of. Very annoying. Phenomenal. Let's hope the cast report is the end of making kids swap gender. Nice. Thank you, the sun.
No good use for puberty blockers. Remarkable weak evidence. Thousands of lives ruined, essentially, by evidence.
Thousands of lives ruined, essentially.
Evidence built on sand. Experts cowed by the mob of people accusing them of being...
Hey, quick question. If Dr. Hilary Cass is so concerned with people misrepresenting her, why doesn't she call out these liars? Like, she's literally complaining about Twitter activists misrepresenting her paper, while some of the most powerful and wealthy, quote-unquote, journalists in Britain are openly lying about the content. The Cass review doesn't say thousands of people's lives ruined. The Cass review doesn't say it's all built on set. Like, out of curiosity, if she's so interested in challenging misinterpretations of her report, where is all of her, where's her rebuking all of the gleeful misinterpretation being done by hate mongers who occupy the highest seats of power in the country, you know? Why the obsession with lefty Twitter activists representing one of the most marginalized groups in Britain? Just wondering, just curious.
Being transphobic. How did it take this long to get to this scenario?
Yeah, look, first of all, I welcome the Cass review, and I want to thank Hilary Cass and her team for the thorough and thoughtful and careful and sensitive way in which they've undertaken this research.
There it is, hate mongerers, but the construction of the Cass review is meant to come across as like neutral and scientific and, you know, moderate, so that they can be like, you know, this is such a wonderful, impartial, unbiased assessment of the situation that validates all of our hate mongering, you know?
In an area that, you know, when you look at the children and young people involved, and actually, you know, the adults in our country as well, who are, I think, desperately worried and frightened about the toxicity of this debate. I think she's done a really important...
I, a hate mongerer, am so concerned about the toxicity of this debate. You know, literally this bit opened with my my co-host claiming that thousands of lives have been ruined. The title of this article is, "Let's hope the Cass report is the end of making kids swap gender." But yeah, you know, I'm just, man, I only wish people could just get along. It reminds me of a post that I saw on Twitter the other day, which was a screenshot saying something like "every time," and the screenshot was of somebody on Twitter saying like, nobody is willing to have like a good like conversation anymore. Everyone's so partisan. And then there were more screenshots from their Twitter feed, and they were a Nazi, like full on Jew posting and everything, JQ posting. And it's like, it always is like that, isn't it? You know, it's always the most hateful people who hide behind the pretense of caring about impartial dialogue. Can we blame Murdoch for this? Yes.
Important piece of work, but I think it does raise some serious concerns that are pretty scandalous, actually. I think we've got to ask ourselves...
If a British person ever says this raises serious concerns, they're a Hitlerite. That is their Hitlerite phrase, okay? They might as well be reciting the 14 words.
You know, why is it that we've seen medical interventions that have been given on the basis of very weak evidence?
Yeah.
How is it that clinicians have been silenced or afraid to come forward? Why is it that a group of young people who are extremely vulnerable are waiting years to access treatment? And I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I'm pretty angry, actually, that despite this review having been commissioned, there are some NHS trusts that refuse to cooperate.
Yeah.
And I want to send a clear message to them that under a Labour government...
Under a Labour government, was that motherfucker Labour? Was that guy Labour?
I think we should leave the ECHR
Wait, who was that
and
guy?
we should put it...
Was that guy Labour? I don't recognize them all by face. Was that guy Labour?
No good use.
Yeah, that's Andy Burnham. Oh my god. Dude, you guys are so cooked. Holy shit. That's not Burnham, lol. Oh, then who is that? No, stop, that's not. That's West Streeting. That's the Shadow Health Secretary! That's literally the guy in charge of health under the British Labour Party, and he will be in charge after the next election. This guy. This is the guy who said he regrets saying trans women are women. That's your Labour Party. There you go. Dead country. Dead country.